Tonight, aftermath of political party primaries reverberates at the National Assembly as lawmakers resume plenary. Speaker of the House of Assembly condemns delegates, House of Representatives, beg your pardon, condemns delegate systems in the choice of candidates. As INEC deadline for submission of candidates list draws closer, Governor Hope Uzodinma says power to choose running mate lies with APC presidential flag bearer as the president meets with governors of the party. Nigeria loses bid to claim $1.7 billion in damages against JP Morgan Chase Bank over the transfer of proceeds from the sale of oil prospecting license 245. Nigeria to take next steps after reviewing judgment. And the UK government determined to deport first batch of asylum seekers to Rwanda despite raft of legal challenges and public backlash.
On business news tonight, World Bank estimates inflation could push an additional 1 million Nigerians into poverty by the end of this year.
Sports news tonight, 7-time Wimbledon champion Serena Williams will return to the championship as a wild card for her 21st appearance, 12 months after suffering an injury during her first-round match.
And from Abuja, court sentences to prison 2 drug traffickers linked to DCP Abba Kyari to 2 years jail term on each of the 3-count charge brought against them by the NDLEA.
One place the fallout of the recent party primaries is reverberating the most appears to be the National Assembly. As plenary sessions resume at the federal legislature, the stock-taking shows that many lawmakers will not be returning to the hallowed chambers, no thanks to the delegate system adopted in choosing candidates during the primaries. But let's begin from the upper chamber, where, in addition to losses suffered by members during the primary elections, it appears to have been hit by defection of prominent lawmakers. Our correspondent Linda Kigbe reports.
Mixed emotions in a scanty Senate chamber as the National Assembly resumes legislative proceedings. The Senate suspended plenary on May 11th to allow lawmakers participate in the primaries of political parties. Some of these lawmakers were triumphant in the just concluded party primaries, but many others were unable to clinch tickets to return to the Senate or other elective positions. Preliminary reports indicate that the 9th Senate may have a high turnover rate of legislators.
I also know for a fact.
However, Senator Lawan is hopeful of a better outcome for his colleagues.
It is never over until it is over.
Further casting a gloomy cloud during Tuesday's proceedings is a defection of 3 prominent senators. The minority leader, Senator Inaya Baribe, who is jumping ship from the PDP to ABGA, the majority leader, Senator Yaya Abdullahi, and Senator Adamu Aliero, both from Kebbi State, who have left the ruling APC for the opposition PDP.
The position of the minority leader is vacant for the PDP to fill.
Lawmakers in the PDP raised concerns over Senator Abaribe's defection to ABGA.
We felt as a minority caucus that our leader ought to meet with us, not to take our permission for cause's sake. Meet with us, discuss with us. He is the custodian of all our rights here.
If you want him to consult you, I have no objection.
For Senators Yaya Abdullahi and Adamu Aliero, their decision to leave the APC for the PDP are contained in 2 separate letters read by the Senate President.
The party had been hijacked by the governor in Kebbi State, and no matter how important and popular you are, you stand no chance of contesting for election if you don't toe the line of the governor.
But the legislator is not satisfied with the reason given by the majority leader for defecting to the PDP.
Majority leader of the Senate has not proven to us that there is a division in the APC.
I note your point of order. Go to court.
Regardless of their political future, these lawmakers still have a job to do before the expiration of a ninth assembly, namely giving attention to improving the security challenges in the country, efficient oversight of other arms of government, scrutinizing budget implementation, and effective representation of their constituents. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gbajabiamila, is questioning the political parties' primaries held across the country, where it saw about 178 serving members of the House of Representatives fail to secure a return ticket in their various parties. In his opening remarks to the House at the resumption of plenary after over a month of recess, the Speaker blamed the losses suffered by many of the members on the delegate system adopted for the exercise. He said the House fought against the system by making direct primary compulsory, but it had to be expunged, allowing political parties to decide their mode of primaries.
I make bold to say here that the legislature has once again suffered losses. The loss really is not for members who lost. It's a loss to democracy, to the institution, and to the country. If it means anything, I know and I am aware that many of our members did not lose their primaries because they were rejected by their constituents. No, far from it. Many of our members lost because of the process which we foresaw in the House of Representatives. The delegate system, which unfortunately is not what a delegate system is supposed to be. Many of our members lost because they were not even given a fair shake or a fair shot. We have good legislators, both here in chambers and back home, who are probably not coming back because of this same process. When we fought for direct primaries in this House, we knew exactly what we were saying. And it is that fight and the kick and the pushback by many who knew or felt they knew what they wanted to do that has now become the bane of the institution of the legislature. It pains me very deeply that the process has gone the way it has gone, where willy-nilly people are changing names, not just delegates' names, but even some of our members who won are now being deprived of the fruit of their labor. We will continue to push. We will continue to fight for our members. But it's not our members that we're fighting for. Let me make that very clear. We're fighting for democracy, we're fighting for the institution, and we're fighting for this country.
Not done with condemning the outcome of the primaries of the legislative chamber, the Speaker dug in on the matter at another forum where he questioned the process that produces delegates for party primaries. Speaking at the Democracy Day lecture organized by the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies in Abuja, Mr. Gbajabiamila maintained that the indirect mode of primary is more democratic.
Gathered here are legislators and members of the civil society organizations as the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies commemorates Nigeria's Democracy Day. The Speaker of the House of Representatives delivered the commemorative lecture titled Nigeria's Democratic Experience, Reflections on Leadership Recruitment and Democratic Institution Building. And he bears his mind on how party delegates emerge from the just concluded party primaries.
Because leaders are produced from the primary process, not from the general elections. At the general elections, you're faced with a fait accompli of who you may or may not want to vote for. Your choices are limited. But we felt that at the primaries level, it was important that all political party members should have a say as to who represents them, both at the party level and in government.
From here, the conversation reflects Nigeria's leadership question in the legislature and the executive.
We are talking about energy transition today. You cannot talk about energy transition, you cannot begin to make legislations about energy transition without having to go to look back on maybe the 2005 reforms in the energy sector, especially the electricity sector. You cannot talk about that reforms without looking at what was obtainable. And the man who has been at the center of legislation will do more and better than the man who is just coming to read about those provisions in just arriving, getting history, or getting maybe support staff to write some framework, or getting support staff to give them some brief on that area.
2023 will only be about excluding people who have the desire to translate our system to benefit the generality of our people. I mean, from all that we are seeing, is either the People's Democratic Party or the All Progressive Congress will win the 2023 general election. Neither of the candidates of these two political parties can be trusted to birth genuine change, as we saw in the desire for the actualization of the June 12 election.
The general submission here is that for Nigeria to build effective and sustainable democratic structures, it has to get its leadership recruitment process right, starting with the party primaries.
72 hours are the deadline for submission of candidates' lists to the Independent National Electoral Commission. Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State says the decision of picking a running mate for the APC's presidential flag bearer, Bola Tinubu, rests solely with the candidate. Speaking after a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari in his office, Governor Uzodinma cautioned against actions capable of endangering national cohesion and unity. He adds that what is most fundamental is for a united Nigeria where democratic governance is upheld. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezuki, reports.
It is barely a week since President Muhammadu Buhari met with governors of the All Progressives Congress at the State House to discuss the convention. He receives them again in the council chamber amidst preparations for the Ekiti governorship elections. After a closed-door meeting, the governors refused to disclose the purpose of that visit. The president also met separately with Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State in his office, promising another visit to the state for the commissioning of some major projects. In a chat with State House correspondents, the governor lent his voice to ongoing talks about the party's choice of a running mate for the presidential flag bearer. He insists that no one save the candidate can interfere with that decision.
The decision also to choose a running mate does not reside with any of us or the governors. It is the presidential candidate that will look at the local characteristics and every factors, political and apolitical, that will make him win his election and take the decision. I don't want us to reduce governance in Nigeria to certain things that will encourage divisiveness. Rather, we should be a united Nigeria, be our brothers' keepers, have a president of Nigeria that will be a president representing every tribe.
He also responds to talks about the Southeast not being considered in the slot for possible running mate.
But that is not the entire ambition, the sole ambition of the Southeasterners, to talk of the governors from Southeast, to be a running mate. We expected that now the power came back to the South, it will go to the Southeast. But you see, it's not a decision that the geopolitical zone alone will do. No geopolitical zone can become a president without the participation of other geopolitical zones. So when you don't get the cooperation, you begin to find out why.
According to the governor, what is uppermost for the party is commitment and mobilization of members towards successful elections in 2023. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
And in part two, after the break, APC presidential candidates Bola Tinubu and over 10 governors of the party storm Ekiti for a mega rally ahead of Saturday's governorship election in the state. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If it has joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Aftermath of political party primaries reverberates at the National Assembly as lawmakers resume plenary. Speaker of the House of Representatives condemns delegate system and the choice of candidates. As INEC deadline for submission of candidates list draws closer, Governor Hope Uzodinma says power to choose running mate lies with the APC presidential flag bearer as the president meets with governors of the party. Nigeria loses bid to claim $1.7 billion in damages against JP Morgan Chase Bank over the transfer of proceeds from the sale of oil prospecting license 245. Nigeria to take next steps after reviewing judgment. And UK government determined to deport first batch of asylum seekers to Rwanda despite raft of legal challenges and public backlash. More politics now ahead of Saturday's governorship poll in Ekiti State. The Independent National Electoral Commission has held an election stakeholders meeting in Ekiti, the state capital. The meeting provided the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, the opportunity to highlight what the commission has done in preparation for the polls.
The Resident Electoral Commissioner, the election is scheduled to hold this Saturday.
We have taken every step to ensure the successful conduct of the election this weekend. We held many meetings with political parties and their candidates. We had several engagements with the security agencies at the national, state, and local government levels. We consulted with stakeholders. We sought for and received the blessings of the royal fathers and religious leaders. We have recruited, trained, and carefully screened all categories of ad hoc staff to be deployed to the field. We have delivered all non-sensitive materials for the election. Voter education and sensitization is ongoing. We have made arrangements for the deployment of men and materials to all polling units on election day. For a more effective supervision of the process, we have deployed 4 national commissioners and 8 resident electoral commissioners and many senior officials to support our state office in Ekiti to deliver credible elections. Voter registration was carried out all over the state, including the devolution of the exercise to 177 wards across the state.
It's just a few days to the governorship election in Ekiti State, and the All Progressives Congress has held a mega rally to firm up its preparations for the exercise. The national chairman, Abdullahi Adamu, and its presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu, were on hand to drum up support for the governorship candidate, Mr. Biodun Oyebanji, ahead of the elections on Saturday.
It's just few days to the governorship election in Ekiti State, and top officials of the All Progressives Congress, led by the national chairman Abdullahi Adamu, the presidential candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and some governors of the party, joined supporters in Ekiti, the state capital, for the party's mega rally to drum up support for Mr. Biodun Oyebanji, who is seeking to succeed Governor Kayode Fayemi.
I have just been informed that I did not introduce Governor Abiodun properly as the Eleyi of Ogun State.
The national chairman of the APC, Abdullahi Adamu, reminds residents of the state what they stand to gain if they stick with the party.
We are here to join you, the good people of Ekiti State, to present to you our governorship candidates, who by the grace of God will be the successor to Fayemi. Kaponwa Aṣáájú Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who was represented by the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, asked the people of Ekiti State to come out in their numbers and vote for the APC and its governorship candidate.
Now, it is that time for the presentation of Oyebanji, the candidate that you will vote for, the Emilokan of Ekiti. the governor to be.
The event progresses with the handing over of the party's flag to Mr. Biodun Oyebanji, after which he addresses the gathering. It's game on for the APC in Ekiti State as the clock ticks toward the 0 hour, and with this mega rally, it is now clear that the party isn't leaving anything to chance.
Tossing it over now to Maupe Ogun Yusuf in Abuja for more on the news at 10. Hi, Maupe.
Hello, Amarachi. We start off from a court outside of the country. A United Kingdom court has ruled against Nigeria in the $1.7 billion suit against JP Morgan Chase Bank over the transfer of proceeds from the sale of oil prospecting license OPL 245. Judge Sarah Cockerill of the Business and Property Court of England and Wales Commercial Court held that the Nigerian government could not show that it had been defrauded. The federal government had sued JP Morgan, alleging that the bank ought to have known that there was corruption and fraud in a transaction which saw Malabo sell its 100% in OPL 245 to Shell and ENI for $1.1 billion. During the trial, which lasted 6 weeks, Nigeria argued, among other things, that the bank acted negligently when it transferred $875 million between 2011 to 2013 from government accounts to former Petroleum Minister Dan Etete, who had been convicted of money laundering. The country sought $1.7 billion as damages, including interest, for what it identified as glaring red flags, including overwhelming evidence of fraud and stark warnings from JP Morgan's own compliance staff when it authorized the payments. The bank, in its defense, rejected Nigeria's claims, maintaining that all due processes were followed and money laundering checks were done, arguing that allegations of fraud only came up after a new government took over in Nigeria. JP Morgan also argued that it filed suspicious activity reports with enforcement authorities and gained their consent before making the transfers. In its response to the judgment, the federal government has said it will be reviewing the judgment before deciding its next steps. While staying with legal matters, but here in Nigeria, Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court in Abuja has sentenced 2 drug traffickers, Chibunna Patrick Umebe and Emeka Alphonsus Ezewanne, to 2 years jail term on each of the 3 counts brought against them. During the arraignment, both defendants, who were linked to the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, pleaded guilty to the drug trafficking charge against them. They were convicted on counts 5, 6, and 7 of the drug trafficking charge the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, preferred against them. At the resumed proceedings, the NDLEA, through its director of its legal department, Mr. Sunday Joseph, informed the court that it has entered into a plea bargain with the 2 defendants, asking it to adopt the terms of the plea bargain deal as its judgment. While noting that the 2 defendants were remorseful, the trial judge held that the sentence would run concurrently, commencing from the date they were arrested. Also, the court ordered that the defendants should forfeit their international passports in accordance with Section 30 of the NDLEA Act. In line with the plea bargain agreement, the court agreed that the defendants will testify as witnesses in the trial of Abba Kyari and also ordered the NDLEA to ensure their safety in any correctional facility of their choice. Justice Whitney subsequently fixed July the 18th, 19th, and 20th for full trial of DCP Abba Kyari and his men, as well as hearing of their fresh application for bail. Away from the courts, for Nigeria to attain the status of a major player in the global aviation industry, the sector must be repositioned in line with global best practices. Well, that's the submission of speakers at the maiden edition of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria National Aviation Conference here in Abuja. The Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, says the current administration is exploring a public-private initiative that will help enhance operations in all of the country's airports. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Stakeholders in the aviation sector in Nigeria have converged on this hall for the National Aviation Conference organized by the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, which aims at advancing the frontiers of possibilities for safe, secure and profitable air transport. The conference is also to discuss the state of the aviation industry in Nigeria, particularly the prospects and challenges of the air transport industry, which, according to the Director General of FAN, has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
As of 2021, it was reported that Nigeria lost about $2.5 billion in MRO investments outside Nigeria to neighboring countries. Having such investments here would have created more employment opportunities for Nigerians, for revenue generation and training of technical personnel for the maintenance of aircraft.
Statistics by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority shows there are 20 airports in Nigeria with 23 active domestic airlines, 22 foreign carriers and 554 licensed pilots. The Minister of Aviation, Mr. Adi Sirika, says the aviation sector in Nigeria is a gold mine with potentials waiting to be explored.
The roadmap being implemented by this government is such that every single airport will be owned and run by the private sector for more efficiency and, of course, value for money.
Speakers at the event, including Nigeria's first pilot, Captain Bob Hayes, also called for synergy among the industry players.
Management of aviation is getting more sophisticated by the day. The development of a document like the roadmap to chart the course is an inevitable tool for success.
The four-day conference will also feature discussions on the opportunities for investments in the various airports in Nigeria. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted different aspects of human endeavors, including the aviation sector. Stakeholders at this conference are optimistic that the solutions that will be profiled at the end of the conference will go a long way in helping the industry to rebound. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And in health matters, the United Nations is asking the Nigerian government to keep the momentum in response to HIV and AIDS in the country and try to eliminate all new infections by the year 2030. UN AIDS Country Director, Mr. Erasmus Mora, made the call at the official presentation of a book in Abuja to mark Nigeria's response to HIV and AIDS in the last 35 years. He commends the government for recording some successes in the last 3 decades.
The Minister of State for Health and some senior officials of the United Nations and the U.S. Embassy presents the book titled From the Darkest of Days to a New Dawn, 35 Years of Nigerian Response to HIV and AIDS. The book is a review of the challenges and progress made so far in efforts to curtail the spread of HIV in Nigeria. The government is hoping to consolidate on the lessons learned in the last 35 years to scale up interventions and eliminate barriers to treatment.
We are now a few months to 2030, UN AIDS 95 target. The lessons from this publication will create a platform for us to build on.
The federal government is committed to improving the health of Nigerians. I will continue to confront and address the challenges affecting HIV services that constitute a key barrier to accessing HIV treatments.
There is an estimated 1.9 million people living with HIV in Nigeria. 1.6 million of them are receiving treatment. The United Nations says Nigeria has made some progress, but is not off the hook yet.
We are walking into the promised land, but we have not yet occupied it fully. For it to be fully Uhuru, we need to ensure that no Nigerian child is being born with HIV.
According to the United Nations, there are 130,000 children between ages 1 and 10 that are living with HIV and AIDS in Nigeria. Mother-to-child transmission of the virus is also a major impediment to eliminating new infections in the country.
One of the biggest impediments is finding people that are still remaining, that we haven't identified, that need to be identified and placed on treatment.
Nigeria is targeting the elimination of all new HIV infections by the year 2030. And to achieve this, the country must scale up advocacy on testing and treatment and also eliminate all barriers to accessing antiretroviral drugs.
And that's all from Abuja. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks, Mark. We'll continue with health issues here, as Lagos State government has met only 50% of its minimum target in terms of blood needs. That's according to the State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, who made the comment at a symposium and scientific conference in commemoration of the 2022 World Blood Donor Day. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research has introduced Blood Hub, an app which, when fully operational, is expected to be a donor management system for the country.
Blood donation is seen as an act of solidarity by individuals who support the efforts to save lives.
I'm very happy donating blood. It's a painless experience. But going forward, I actually would like to donate maybe every 6 months or thereabouts, maybe like 3 times in a year.
Health practitioners are concerned about the poor culture of blood donation, which they say has cost a lot of people their lives due to unavailability of blood at critical points of their treatment. In Nigeria, 80 to 90% of maternal mortality is as a result of bleeding complications made worse due to shortage of blood.
Blood donation.
Raising awareness for increased voluntary donation is the reason the Lagos State government is holding a symposium and scientific conference in commemoration of the 2022 World Blood Donor Day.
Voluntary donors or donors generally have a lower incidence of cancers, a lower incidence of liver diseases, a lower incidence of cardiac diseases.
The State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, says Lagos is short of 100,000 units of blood, which must be addressed critically.
We've only managed to hit 50%, which means that there is a big gap. We have a blood donor bus. We have all kinds of activities. We've acquired new equipment.
Over at the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, the concerns are the same. Doctors here know only too well the challenges of getting blood, especially for sickle cell patients.
You call a call, nobody picking the call. They are desperate, frustrated, nobody picks the call. Finally, they pick the call and they say they don't have blood. We need a system where we can identify who has what, who is generating what, who is donating what.
It's these problems of availability, access and records that the Blood Hub, a new invention of the Institute, hopes to solve.
We hope to first of all achieve the target of retaining at least 1 million donors in the next 1 year. Now, how did this Blood Hub work? Blood Hub is not standing alone and is not intending to reinvent the wheel. We have structures in Nigeria for blood services. But these structures, there is no synergy. So Blood Hub stands for us to synergize all stakeholders involved in blood services in Nigeria.
Life. So yes, I'm helping ourselves soon. So we should actually...
Now that it has been introduced, NIMA is expecting contributions from those closest to the business of transfusion, such as hospitals and blood banks, in order to fine-tune the app. NIMA hopes to release the app for use within 2 months.
Abducted Anglican Bishop of Jebba Diocese, Right Reverend Oluwaseun Aderoba, his wife and driver have regained their freedom. A statement by the Oyo State Police Command explains that their release follows a massive rescue operation mounted by the police tactical team. Although the gunmen had demanded the sum of 50 million naira as ransom, it is not known if any ransom was paid before they were freed. Bishop Aderoba and his team were abducted along the new Oyo-Ogbomosho Road in Oyo State after the vehicle broke down at an isolated spot as they made their way to Jebba in Kwara State from Yewa in Ogun State. In the meantime, at least 6 persons have been kidnapped in Shola community of Katsina Local Government Council by terrorists. Residents of the community told Channels Television the community was invaded by the attackers who rode on motorcycles in the early hours of today. Shola, which is located behind the Katsina Federal Teaching Hospital, is vulnerable to attacks due to its proximity with bandit enclaves located around Bugaje community in Jibia local government area of the state. Although the terrorists did not kill or injure any of the residents, eyewitnesses told us that the terrorists were visiting house to house and subsequently succeeded in kidnapping 6 men, 1 married woman and her 2-year-old daughter. The Katsina State Police Command has confirmed the attack and says only 6 people were kidnapped. In another disturbing incident, gunmen have abducted 2 worshippers after attacking the Celestial Church of Christ at Wasimi in Iwekoro local government area of Ogun State, also earlier today. This was confirmed by the police spokesperson in the state, Mr. Abimbola Oyeyemi, who said a vigil was ongoing when the church was attacked. He added that the police are on the trail of the kidnappers and would ensure the abducted worshippers are rescued. The attack comes just a week after gunmen attacked the St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo, Ondo State, where they killed over 30 people. The governors of Lagos, Ogun and Kwara have announced the donation of 25 million naira each, totaling 75 million naira for victims of the St. Francis Catholic Church attack in Owo, Ondo State. The governors were received at Government House, Akure, today, where they paid a condolence visit to the Ondo State Governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, on the incident that happened on June 5th. While thanking the governors for their gesture and solidarity, Governor Akeredolu described the Owo attack as dreadful and one too many, but warned that the people of the Southwest will not tolerate another unprovoked attack on the region under any guise. Governor of Ogun State, Dapo Abiodun, spoke on behalf of the visiting governors, reiterating the attack was not on the people of Owo and Ondo State only, but the entire people of the Southwest region. Staying with security issues, 2 suspects have been arrested in connection with Sunday's killing of 13 people at Igama community of Opoku local government area of Benue State. As the Deputy Governor, Mr. Bono Benson, declares many people are still missing, including 3 vigilantes. He opened up on the killings after leading a state government delegation to the scene of the attacks, where over 90% of the community was burnt, with property worth millions of naira destroyed.
Igama community, a remote village in Opoku local government area of Benue State, is now a shadow of itself. It's been nearly 48 hours since the attack by unknown gunmen who torched many houses, opened fire on residents, killing 13 of them and leaving many homeless as a result.
They are selling at 7 o'clock. They were there over 200, and they had to run to the church first of all. Fortunately, the people weren't in the church, and they went rampage from the community, from Hector, from north and south, all in brother direction, and made sure they murdered 12. Down it is 12.
The Benue State Deputy Governor, Mr. Benson Abonu, leads a delegation into the community to see firsthand the level of destruction done by the assailants. While condemning the attack, the Deputy Governor urges the federal government to rise up to its primary responsibility.
I think what is going on is now intolerable. Something has to happen, and it behoves on the federal government to ensure that we are given a peace of mind and we are given an atmosphere that we can live freely. We are not troublemakers in this country. The Idoma people are not troublemakers, they are peace-loving people. And there is no reason at all why we should be suffering this.
The Opoku local government chairman, Mrs. Amina Audu, while lamenting the huge humanitarian crisis created by the grievous attacks, sent some cheery news to the survivors and family of the deceased on the arrest of 2 of the suspected attackers from eyewitness accounts, who say there were about 100 in number.
They should keep calm and pray to God. Since government is intervening, we'll see what government will do. Like the story that came to me now is that they have arrested two persons from those that have done the killing among the attackers. I thank the government for their quick intervention.
Although the traditional ruler is grateful to the state government for providing them with relief material, he seeks support for his people to defend themselves.
Our people are not safe. They have killed about 14 persons from this a gamma attack. I beg them that they should put us together to make sure that we are on ground to defend ourselves.
Survivors of the attack, comprising mainly women and children, are currently putting up in the open space of a public primary school in Ojakpo.
Time now for business news. Here's Anne Mahmoudou.
Thank you, Amarachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. Let's begin with the World Bank estimates that inflation in Nigeria, one of the highest in the world before the war in Ukraine, is likely to push an additional 1 million Nigerians into poverty by the end of this year. This projection is contained in the bank's latest Nigeria Development Update report, which was published today. According to that report, additional 1 million is different from the 6 million Nigerians that were already predicted to fall into poverty this year due to rise in food prices. This latest report highlights that the inflationary pressure will be compounded by the fiscal pressure in the country that the country will face this year because of the ballooning cost of fuel subsidies as oil production continues to decline. And with latest data showing the federal government's borrowing from CBN hitting 19 trillion naira, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, the CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, says that it is alarming as it is about 35% of the total money supply. Mr. Rewane was a guest on our Business Morning program earlier today.
I think we should be probably alarmed because 19 trillion naira is probably about almost 35% of total money supply. And if that amount of money is being borrowed unilaterally through a process which actually is unorthodox or awkward, then we need to straighten it up. So what does that mean? It means that your debt service requirements, when it's now properly restructured, will be higher. And the ways and means is another way of fueling inflation. Inflation is already projected to increase to about 17.8 official inflation. But anecdotally, we see higher numbers. And inflation is not just a Nigerian-specific issue. It's now a global issue. You know, cost push factors, global supply shocks, and foreign exchange pass-through. So you just make things worse if you don't actually bring about a structured and orderly way of managing your debt. It cannot be done in this arbitrary and ad hoc manner.
The Nigeria Export Promotion Council is asking exporters in Nigeria to key into the Trade Hub initiative to gain wider access to the international market. At the meeting with exporters in Abuja, the executive director of the council, Mr. Ezra Yakusak, explains that with the establishment of trade hubs, which has the objective of boosting non-oil export and attaining the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Nigerian exporters enjoy a platform to contribute their quota to the nation's socio-economic development.
We at the NAPC firmly believe that our survival as a nation depends on non-oil export. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very optimistic that after this meeting today, the exporters within the north-central part of Nigeria will be fully aware of the existence of this facility and make maximum use of it. This will not only improve the quality and quantity of our products, this will not only improve the quantity and quality of our export to the North African region, but it will also lead to improved foreign exchange earning into the Nigerian economy. Lastly, I wish to extend my appreciation to the resource persons led by Gazwan Mosalati of Agravity Limited in Egypt and J.M. Goma, who are special guests today. They'll be talking to us today on what you need to know about the modalities of implementation of the Export Trade House.
Investors at the equities market resumed the holiday-shortened week with profit-taking as the all-share index dipped by 0.16%. Let's hear the details from Laddie Williams.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the equities market couldn't sustain the positive momentum we saw last week Friday, starting the shortened trading week down in the red. Well, we see sell-offs with tier 1 banking stocks like GTCO down about 2.27%. Zenith Bank share price also dropped about 0.66%, taking The banking counter deep into red territory. Just the insurance counter looking good today. Learn Africa PLC, that's in the printing and publishing sector, led the gainers counter to close at 2 naira 37 kobo, up 9.72%. We also see Sunu Assurances Nigeria PLC on that counter, while CA PLC led the losers counter to close at 18 naira 15 kobo, down 9.93%, followed closely by Carveting offshore support and livestock feed. Well, it's a negative market breadth today with 7 stocks posting gains against 23 losing stocks. I guess profit taking continues in this market. Well, that's the stock market report. I'm Ladi Williams. It's back to you.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial star 894 hash now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot. And the UK government says it will be continuing plans to deport the first batch of asylum seekers to Rwanda. Despite a raft of legal challenges and public backlash, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he thought the agreement with Rwanda was a sensible partnership. While here in Nigeria, legal practitioner Femi Falana has called on the UK government to immediately halt what he describes as the patently unlawful and discriminatory plan to send those asylum seekers and refugees who've fled conflicts to Rwanda. Simon Pusey has more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The regional governor of Severodonetsk says all bridges to the city have now been destroyed, leaving civilians trapped. Satellite imagery shows a number of destroyed and damaged bridges which link the city to nearby towns. There's also constant shelling in the neighbouring city of Lysychansk. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called the human cost of the battle there and in Kharkiv terrifying. Meanwhile, Russia says it has struck an artillery weapons depot with Caliber cruise missiles in Ukraine's Chernihiv region. The Russian Defense Ministry released footage showing the missiles being launched from jets. They also claim to have shot down a Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter jet and an Mi-24 helicopter in the past 24 hours. The UK Prime Minister says he's not deterred by criticism of his government's immigration policy. Boris Johnson said he would not be put off by criticism and legal challenges against the Rwanda immigration plan. It was ahead of the first flight to take asylum seekers to Rwanda. Britain has struck a £120 million deal with the country to send some migrants who had arrived illegally by crossing the Channel to be processed. The government says the strategy is needed to stem the flow of migrants risking their lives in crossing the Channel.
We have had to stop it. It's been extremely difficult to find a way of doing it that is humane. It is not reasonable to try to turn boats around at sea in the English Channel. Those waters are very dangerous. We've had to work within the scope of common humanity and compassion. That's the right thing to do. But we have to interrupt the business model of the gangs.
Australian shares have recorded their biggest fall in more than 2 years, dragged lower by growing concerns of interest rate hikes leading to a global recession. The S&P index closed about 3.6% lower, its lowest level since February 2021. The benchmark is down more than 12% from its peak scaled this year. Japan's Nikkei stock index was down 1.32%, having fallen as much as 2% earlier in the session. Authorities say a Mexican political advisor has been killed by a lynch mob after child kidnapping accusations were spread on messaging groups. Daniel Picazo was attacked and beaten by a crowd of around 200 people in the central state of Puebla. He had been visiting the town of Papatlazoco when he was cornered by the mob before being dragged into a local field and set on fire. Local officials called the attack an act of barbarism. Port officials say a ship carrying nearly 16,000 sheep has sunk off Sudan's Red Sea coast. Inspectors at the port noticed that the ship was slightly leaning to the right as it was supposed to start its journey en route to Saudi Arabia. The accident left no casualties among the ship's staff, while losses among sheep are yet to be announced. An overload could possibly be the reason for the accident. A pipeline fire near Flagstaff in Arizona has grown to 5,000 acres, forcing hundreds of evacuations. A time-lapse video shows the extent of the blaze with smoke billowing. Strong winds continued to move the pipeline fire toward the northeast in Flagstaff, Arizona, as 2 additional wildfires, the Haywire Fire and Double Fire, were reported about 6 miles away. Hot summer weather and adverse winds are stoking the flames. The moment a house was swept away by Yellowstone River in Montana has been caught on camera as the area endured record flooding and rock slides. There were gasps from locals as the building fell into the heavy torrent, which has seen record levels of rain in recent days. Yellowstone National Park took the rare step of closing all 5 of its entrances. Aerial footage shows various roads in the park's southern tier destroyed or submerged. The entire park, spanning parts of Wyoming, Montana and Idaho, will remain closed to visitors as officials inspect damage to roads, bridges and other facilities. And finally, people in Hong Kong have bid farewell to Jumbo Floating Restaurant as it was being towed for the final time. Once a popular tourist destination, the 46-year-old restaurant suspended operations in 2020 amid the coronavirus outbreak. It was donated to Ocean Park, but the amusement park later said it could not find a third-party operator to run the restaurant. The landmark, which resembles a Chinese imperial palace, has welcomed celebrities such as Queen Elizabeth II and Tom Cruise with Cantonese cuisine since 1976. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Nigeria's Golden Eaglets are through to the semi-final of the WAFU Zone B Under-17 Cup holding in Ghana. The 5-time world champions this evening beat Togo 3-1 at the Cape Coast Sports Stadium to finish top in Group A. Kevwe Iyede got the opener for Nigeria on the 11th minute of the first half. Precious William made it 2 just before half-time. Despite an early goal on the resumption of the second half by the Togolese, Light Eke made it 3 to seal a back-to-back victory for Nigeria. 7-time Wimbledon champion Serena Williams will return to Grand Slam tennis for the first time in a year later this month, after being handed a singles wildcard entry by the All England club earlier today. The 23-time Grand Slam singles champion, who has not played since suffering an injury during her first-round match at Wimbledon 12 months ago, has plummeted to 1,208 in the world rankings. The 40-year-old will make a return to competitive tennis next week at the Eastbourne International, where she has been given a wild card into the doubles with Tunisia's Ons Jabeur. A 4-time major champion Rory McIlroy believes it is the right thing to do after emerging as a leading pro PGA Tour voice in the wake of players signing on for the Saudi-backed Live Golf Invitational Series. The PGA Tour last week suspended Phil Mickelson and other members who joined Live Golf, with Commissioner Jay Monahan saying they had decided to turn their backs on the tour.
You know, the PGA Tour was created by people and, you know, tour players that came before us, the likes of Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer. They created something and worked hard for something, and I just hate to see all the players that came before us and all the hard work that they've put in, it just, you know, come out to be nothing. I think one of the other things as well is, you know, the PGA Tour has certainly given me a lot of opportunities, and I've benefited a lot from that.
That's sports news. I'm
Thanks, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, today questioned the political party primaries held across the country, which saw about 178 serving members of the House of Representatives failing to secure a return ticket in their various parties. Also today, Nigeria lost its bid to claim $1.7 billion in damages against JP Morgan Chase Bank over the transfer of proceeds from the sale of oil prospecting license 245. The government said it would take the next steps after reviewing the judgment. That is it on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.